Okay, so you've decided that you want the convenience of electronic fuel injection on your classic car. And so you've made a swap from the carburetor to one of the aftermarket EFI systems. And it doesn't matter, this applies to all of them across the board. So here's what happened. You made the swap and you found that the thing starts instantly. No more nonsense with the choke and pumping the gas and all of that. I'm not judging you. So the thing starts instantly, right? No problem. Idles smooth right off the bat. It's great. And around town, the thing feels pretty good. You know, stop and go traffic, 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, it's okay. But then you notice that on the highway, 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, it doesn't really quite pull the way it should. And while your around town gas mileage is the same, if not slightly better, it falls off pretty drastically. Between 10 and 20% when you're out on the road, 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour, covering ground. You also know that it doesn't have the punch anymore that it used to. It feels okay, but it's off. Horsepower is off. 10%, 20% or thereabouts. Okay, did I just describe the situation that you're in, your exact deal? Because it's universal. And I cannot believe that nobody has made this video, because I went searching for it, but nobody's made it. So I'm gonna make it. So now this is a continuation of the video we did, the last one we did on converting from EFI to carburetor. And in that video, we talked about the gasoline engines need, the internal combustion engine, the gasoline engines need for a mixture of atomized and vaporized fuel in order to, I don't want to recap that whole thing. If you're interested and you're not familiar with this, go back and watch that video. But here's the situation, and this applies, like I said, across the board with all of these EFI systems. You made the swap. You've tried tuning it every way you can, and it never seems to get better. A little different, but it never seems to really get better. All right, now I'm going to show you why this is happening, how this is a universal thing, and we're going to have to do a little manifold history, more or less, intake manifold, because if you're dealing with a classic car, now this doesn't apply if let's say you're dealing with a race engine, you're dealing with something that has a race style intake manifold, like an air gap manifold or anything like that. We're not talking about if you're using cylinder heads that don't have a heat crossover, an intake manifold that doesn't have any provisions for heat crossover. Just a typical classic car. Took the carburetor off, bolted the EFI on, and here's your situation. So here is the basics. This is what happens. All right. So as I showed in a previous video, this is a typical street intake manifold intended to be used with a carburetor. All right. Now we know this is intended to be used with a carburetor because it has a heat crossover passage. So what this does is it takes exhaust gas from one of the cylinders on this bank and exhaust gas from one of the cylinders on this bank, and it passes it through underneath and it warms the plenum. I'm going to tell you why that's important in a second. But first, I have to dispel a myth. Because a lot of people are under the impression that a heat crossover only operates when the heat riser in the exhaust manifold. So typically, with this setup, on the passenger side exhaust manifold, I think almost all of them have it on the passenger side exhaust manifold, there's a flapper valve with a spring, right, that reacts to temperature. And when the engine is cold, that spring closes a flapper valve in the exhaust manifold. And the purpose of this is to force exhaust gases through that passage. So if you restrict its flow out the pipe, then it has to back up and it'll go across the intake manifold to the unrestricted side. And then once the engine warms up, that spring relaxes, the flapper opens, and that exhaust valve flows, or the exhaust manifold flows normally. But that does not stop the function of the heat crossover, because at any time the engine is running, you don't have the exhaust being forced and directed through there anymore, but trust me, it's going through there, and it's serving the purpose of keeping the engine warm. It's also serving the purpose of keeping the choke relaxed, because remember now, carburetor engine, it has a choke. So when the engine is cold, when the intake manifold is closed, the choke is closed. The job of that heat crossover, one of the jobs of the heat crossover, is to provide heat for the choke so the choke stays open. So just to recap now, that exhaust crossover passage is always active when the engine is running. It's just extra active when the engine is cold. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. Now, why is this thing so important? Why is it so crucial to the function of a carbureted engine? This jammy right here, that's a carburetor booster. All right, now, this is the main difference, the main functional difference between a throttle body style fuel injector, like these aftermarket kits, and a carburetor. As gasoline is pulled through the booster by engine vacuum, the Venturi causes, the Venturi effect causes the temperature of the fuel to drop, sometimes drastically. So the fuel is sitting in the carburetor and it's approximately the same temperature as the surroundings under the hood. So let's say it's sitting there at 160 degrees, 150 degrees, or thereabouts, which is hot for a fuel, gasoline especially, because it's wanting to vaporize at that point. Now, the fuel gets pulled through this booster, and depending on the RPM, depending on the blend of the fuel, depending on a lot of different factors, as the fuel is pulled through this booster, its temperature drops between 50 and 100 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? That's pretty drastic. That's a major change in the state of fuel as it's being pulled through the booster. Now, the way that it's counteracted is by having this little stove or this little oven underneath the plenum. Because as the chilled fuel is coming through the manifold here, through the bottom of the carburetor into the plenum, this area right here, which is heated by the exhaust, is lightening it up so that it has a better chance of a higher percentage of it being vaporized as it enters the engine. And again, gasoline engines are intended to run with a combination of vapor and liquid. And I'm repeating myself from the last video, okay? Street type of engines, like if you're talking about like a muscle car or classic car type of thing, operate approximately 80% vapor, 20% atomized fuel, raw fuel, right? The vapor lights it quick and the atomized fuel increases the duration of burn. So you've got a active flame front against the piston for more degrees of crankshaft rotation as the piston is going down on the bore. All right. Race engines, high-performance engines are the opposite. It's approximately 20% vapor, so the spark plug has something easy to light, and then the balance of it, the 80%, is going to be in droplet or atomized form, and that burns slowly and really increases the duration of power. That's the difference between the two. And again, I covered that in the last video. All right, so now we know that as the fuel is being pulled through the booster, through the Venturi, the temperature of it is dropping drastically, between 50 and 100 degrees, depending on situation and fuel blend. I know I'm repeating myself. Now you bolt on, you take the carburetor off, and now you bolt on an EFI system, a throttle body EFI system. And here's the main difference. Here's what nobody seems to grasp, okay? There is no Venturi effect. When you're forcing fuel through the nozzle of a fuel injector, there is no Venturi effect. There is no cooling factor. If anything, the temperature of the fuel is raised slightly because it's being pressurized as it passes through the nozzle. Now, you have this fuel that was already at 160 degrees, 50 degrees, 160 degrees, thereabouts, again, generalities because we're talking about the broad spectrum here. You've got this fuel that's at that temperature, 150 degrees, let's call it. It gets passed through the injector. Its temperature goes from 150 to 170 degrees, 160, 170, 180 degrees. And now, because you've got a street intake manifold designed for a carburetor, it hits the heated plenum. So what you have now is fuel that's coming out of the nozzle, the injector nozzle, that's already in the process of vaporizing because of its temperature. And then it hits the heated surfaces of the intake manifold. You end up with much more vapor, especially in certain circumstances, much more vapor than liquid. And so what happens is the fuel that's being burned in the combustion chamber, because it's so biased towards the vapor side, it happens fast, just poof, and there's no follow through on the piston. So there's less pressure building as the piston heads down the bore, less degrees of crankshaft rotation that the piston is being pushed by an active flame front, and so power falls off. Now at low speeds, like I said, 20, 30, 40 miles an hour, just zipping around town, you'll never notice it. It's fine because the engine isn't really being loaded. You may actually see an increase in fuel mileage at those lower speeds because it doesn't need, the engine isn't required to create a lot of power to move the car. But now you highway speed, 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour, you're pushing wind. The engine has to work. And at that point, it needs more atomized fuel than vaporized fuel, or a higher percentage of atomized to vaporized fuel. And it's not getting it because as it passes through that heated intake manifold, everything's turned into vapor. That's where your power falls off. And because your power falls off, you have to give it a little more gas. The map starts to saying, yep, fatten this thing up. It pours more fuel and even more vapor. You know, it's never happy. It's never satisfied because you're feeding this motor nothing but vapor. That's why most people will have, and I mean, I'm not saying most, I mean the vast majority of people who make this carburetor to EFI swap, and again, regardless of the manufacturer, will all encounter this basic thing. And you've seen bunches of dyno tests, I'm sure you've seen them, where they compare a carbureted, they'll put an engine on a dyno, the typical like high performance regular street engine, they'll put it on a dyno, they'll run it with the EFI, and then they swap over to the carburetor, and the carburetor makes more power. That's why, I'm telling you why this happens. The EFI is dumping pressurized heated fuel into a heated environment and not giving the engine any liquid, any like, you know, the part that sticks to your ribs, right? It's not giving that to create those extra degrees of crankshaft duration under power. All right, so what do we do about this? Well, all else being equal, it's going to be hard. You can match the performance of, with a properly tuned setup, you can match the performance of a carburetor with an EFI system, but you'll never exceed it because the carburetor and gasoline in an internal combustion engine are a natural match. The EFI is not a natural match. It's something that came about afterwards. Like evolution took the internal combustion engine and fuels in a kind of different direction, and this is just the state of the art, and it's what we have, and everything is tuned to work around that. Now, when you're making a conversion, you're combining two eras, and you're combining two different, let's say, tuning philosophies or design philosophies together, and that's why you don't get the satisfying results. So here's what you have to do if you want to maximize. You got a classic car, and you don't want to make drastic changes. Here's what you have to do to maximize your situation, right? The first is block off the heat crossover. Now, several ways to do this. They make intake manifold gaskets that'll have the heat crossover blocked. You do not need or want that any heat in the plenum at all, right? No good with the fuel injection. So you can block that off. I've seen those gaskets burn through over time, so it's something to keep in consideration. In the old days, when we were trying to boost the power of our hot rods, our street cars and everything, we would just cut up like a can, like a tin can, and wedge that in between the gasket and the intake manifold to block off the heat passage. That's another way that you can do it. Just to show you what I generally do myself is when I'm building an engine for myself, I automatically weld this passage closed in the cylinder head. And the reason I do that is because the steel shim gaskets I use regularly are reusable over and over and over again. And I don't know what intake manifold I'm going to use. So by welding closed those holes in those ports in the head, I could just swap any intake manifold onto it and not worry about having to, deal with issues. So I just automatically weld them closed. For hot rod motors, not for regular street motors. Regular street motors, I never touch that stuff. All right, so blocking off or eliminating the heat crossover is one thing. If you're not allergic to swapping intake manifolds, a race style or an air gap style intake manifold would be a benefit, or a manifold, let's say a factory TBI manifold, because factory TBI manifolds never have a heat crossover. So if you've got an engine, classic car engine, that'll accept a later TPI specific intake manifold, make that swap, and that'll help you out that way. Also, you can lower the operating temperature of the engine overall. So let's say you're at 200 degrees. That's the general temperature of the engine. That's obviously not the temperature of the combustion chambers. It's not the temperature of internal engine parts like that. But that's the surface temperature of the engine, the cooling temperature, and what the metal surfaces around the engine sees. So if you drop from, let's say, 200 degrees to like 180, 170, your efficiency may start to drop off as far as overall performance goes. And we're talking about fractional numbers at the high end of the scale, but it will cause less, because the intake manifold is attached to that, and so you've got a little heat that radiates through the engine. So if you could drop the overall operating temperature of the motor by like 30 degrees or so, that'll help. So those two things will get you pretty much the same performance, fuel mileage and highway performance, as you would find with a carburetor. Ultimately, at the end of the rainbow, yes, the carburetor will make more power. But there are advantages to the EFI system. I mean, I don't use them myself. I wouldn't use them. I'm not judging you for using them. If that's the path that you decided to take, I'm explaining to you why your system doesn't give you that same, obviously outside of glitches in software or whatever it happens to be. I'm telling you why a perfectly functioning EFI system is giving you unsatisfactory results on your otherwise stock classic car engine. All right, did I cover everything? I think I covered everything that time around. Now the weather's turning nice, and I'm gonna go take my new bike for a ride. And we're gonna do a whole video on that tomorrow. So that's it, guys. See you tomorrow.